Hi, I'm Aaron Tomlinson. Welcome back to the channel. And in this video, I want to talk to you about why I believe absolutely and totally in the power of positive thinking and why it's important and something that we can embrace that can completely change our lives. So, as I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking about what brought me into the Christian faith. And understand that when I was 18, 19 years old, I was coming out of a horribly traumatic experience for me. I was dealing with a lot of personal issues, a lot of feelings of powerlessness, feelings of hopelessness, feelings of despair. And I know that resonates with a lot of people. I know there are a lot of people out there that feel hopeless at times. They feel disempowered. They feel like life is just happening to them rather than happening for them. And they don't know what to do. They don't know how to cope. And that's the situation that I found myself in. And I've dedicated my life to helping people in that same situation. So let's get back to what led me into such a radical conversion in my Christian faith. So while I was going through this and experiencing these things at 19 years old, somebody gave me a business card. And on the back of their business card, they had written some scriptures. And one of the scriptures that they had written was Jeremiah 29:11. Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people in their religious experience, they did not meet a God who wanted to do good for them, who wanted to prosper them, who wanted to give them a hope and a future. Instead, they met a God that wanted to harm them, that was, meticulously sitting in heaven, keeping track of all your negative actions and thoughts, and shaming you and despising you and wanting to send you to hell for the slightest reason, whether that was sins that you committed in the case of groups that believed that you lose your salvation when you go out and sin, or groups that believed in eternal security, but you had to get your history lesson about Jesus just right, believing that what he did for you somehow saved you for a better future in heaven. But that wasn't my experience. As I think about it, that really wasn't my experience. And that was never a hallmark of my ministry. I never went out and preached condemnation to people. I never went out and preached hell to people. What got me into the faith was I grabbed hold of this verse like it was like a light that broke through the darkness. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope. Now, I could have easily dismissed that because it was just on the back of a business card. But I remember one day, like we do sometimes in the beginning, where we just throw open the Bible, God speak to me. And I had just seen this on a business card. And so throw open the Bible and point your finger at a verse. And what do you know? When I threw open the Bible, it fell open to Jeremiah 29, and I pointed at verse 11. And then I remember driving in my car, just ruminating about all the bad stuff and all the negative stuff that had happened to me and the negative stuff in my life. And I drive by some random church that I never attended, but they had on their billboard, right, or their marquee, the verse Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope. And then when it really took root was I decided to go to church, and I just picked a random church in my neighborhood where I knew someone from my childhood that attended there and had invited me. And I go to this service, and there was nothing really special about the service. There was no real strong presence. There was no real hopeful Joel Osteen kind of message that was coming from the pulpit. But I remember just leaning forward on the pew. This church had pews, and I pull out their hymnal, and on the front of their hymnal, you guessed it, is the verse Jeremiah 29:11. And here's the thing, I started to believe in that. I started to counter the negative thoughts and negative feelings and negative situations in my life by saying, maybe, just maybe, there is a different future out there for me that's better. Maybe there is a future out there for me where I can prosper. Maybe there is a future out, maybe there is hope. Maybe all is not lost. And I don't have to stay stuck in this situation of negativity and depression and self-anger and hatred at myself and everybody else in the world. And that thought was like a seed that went deep inside my subconscious, went deep inside what we would have called back then my spirit, and it began to take root. And I began to think, okay, all is not lost. Something good out there in the future can happen for me. And when I began to think like that, I began to feel a sense of empowerment. I began to feel like I wasn't the byproduct and the victim of things that happened to me, but that I could actually do something, having faith in God, having faith in his promises that could make a difference for me, that could cause me to experience a different reality, experience a different world, experience a different future. And that began to build up inside of me and motivate me to one of the most powerful things we can do, and that is change. Now, also, I was exposed very early on to faith movement teachings, which basically says, you know, you're not just a byproduct of the will of God, that there's something that you can do in terms of how you believe and what you believe that can make a change or make a difference in your life. And it was the power of positive thinking that pulled me out of that place. Let me tell you something. I had sat down with therapists. I had sat down with people and had ruminated over all my situations. There's, you know, teachings out there that if you just embrace the feelings, you quit denying them, you quit ignoring them, and you just embrace those negative feelings, that they'll somehow magically transform. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's absolutely not true. I'm going to tell you that on the authority of my own experience. And I'm going to tell you that on the authority of myself as a clinical mental health practitioner. And I'm going to tell you that on the authority of research. Research actually shows that the more you ruminate about your negative experience, the more you talk about your negative experience, the more it inflames the pain centers in your brain. That's just an absolute, almost scientific fact. They've taken people, they have hooked them up to neural imaging, and they have had them recount and talk about their pain and talk about their trauma. And all it does is activate those pain centers. And in actual fact, from a scientific proven perspective, what it does is it re-traumatizes the person. So the truth is, if you go to therapy, you can go to therapy for better or for worse. If you go to a friend and talk about your negativity and your hurt and your trauma and your negative situations, you actually can re-traumatize yourself. It's one of the things that we are taught as trauma-informed therapists, following evidence-based practices, that you have to be careful about opening up people's trauma in a therapy session. Are you opening up the person's trauma in order to help them resolve it and integrate it? Or are you opening it up in a way that's going to re-traumatize them and make them worse? So I say that people go to therapy for better or for worse. Now, I'm not saying that we ignore negative situations. I'm not saying we pretend like they're not real. I'm not saying that we shove negative situations into our shadow and pretend they never happened. But what I am saying is that we get to choose our focus. So real healing and real help for people comes not when they just sit in their negative experiences and then somehow through magical thinking, it just is transformed, which is what some people in the spiritual communities who have no training, no expertise whatsoever, and they teach people this stuff, and they say you should just sit in your trauma, you should just feel those feelings, and suddenly they'll magically be transformed. They don't even know what they're talking about, because in actuality, that can make you worse. Sitting there talking about your traumas and your negativity can make you worse because it causes you to focus on those things. So with a skilled therapist, with somebody that really knows what they're doing, they will help you open up your trauma in a way that you can resolve it and integrate it for the purpose of getting on a more positive path in life, so that you can think more positively, so that you can have hope for your future. How many of us have been in a negative situation or a bad time or going through something difficult, and we just heard a word of encouragement, or we turned on the TV and maybe we saw a television preacher that we don't even like or don't even agree with their lifestyle or their doctrine, but they said something that encouraged us. They said something that got us through the next day and changed our lives. And that's why sometimes people convert. And that's why going around just talking about the traumas of religion, or the horribleness of things we experienced in the church, or just sitting with your negative feelings and somehow they'll magically, alchemically transform into something positive. That's complete and utter bullshit. It's complete and utter bullshit. And anybody that tells you that is leading you down a path that's going to make you more sick rather than a path that's going to make you more well. Would you rather sit there and think about negativity and negative emotions and dark emotions and all this stuff, or would you rather believe that there is that all is not lost, that there is hope for you, that you can change your life, and the evidence is in when you begin to shift your focus away from the negativity in your life and you begin to practice gratefulness and gratitude. I wrote my master's thesis on this in college. You know, both my bachelor's thesis and my master's thesis, on how the way that we think positively or negatively affects our physical bodies, affects our emotions, affects our outcomes. The truth is, if you believe something good is going to happen and you believe you're going to do well at something, that statistically you have a better chance of performing well at it. You have a better chance at mental health. You have a better chance at creating for yourself a new life and a better life. The opposite is also true. In fact, studies show that if you get angry and you get upset about something, that your immune system becomes weakened. For something up to, it's been 11 or 12 years since I wrote that paper, but I want to say for something like 3 hours. But if you sit there and practice gratitude, if you sit there and practice compassion, if you sit there and practice thinking about something positive, it actually does a lot of things chemically in your body. It's been proven, people have proven this through simple studies and simple scientific experiments, that if you think positively and you think about something that gives you gratitude, and you think about compassion, you put your focus away from the negative stuff in life and you put your focus on the positive things, the things you have to be grateful for, the things that could possibly happen for you, and you feel good, it increases your immune response. It increases the production of anti-aging chemicals in the body. So I'm not saying if you went through something terrible that you shouldn't feel those feelings. I'm not saying if you went through something terrible or you have trauma that you shouldn't work with that trauma in a way to integrate it into your current experience. But what I am saying is that there's power in positivity. There's power in positive thinking. There's power in hope. And whatever you need to grasp, whether it's true or not, whether it is embraced by the culture or not, whether it's embraced by your family or not, there is scientific evidence that if you experience gratitude, if you experience positivity, if you forgive and let go of all that stuff that you've been holding on to with other people, that you will actually continue to improve. Now, one other scientific study that I want to reference that was done out of Princeton or Harvard, again, it's been years since I've looked at this. I suppose if I was more diligent and cared enough, I would, post little, all the specifics of it, but the message is still there. What they found was that people who believe that they are sent, this was done on religious thinking and the brain and how it affects the brain. If you are focused on the parts of you that you don't like, if you are focused on negativity, if you believe in a God that is going to punish you for who you are, also, if you are in a position where you believe that you are somehow anointed by God to go against the culture and fix all the stuff that's there and right all the wrongs, that it literally has an effect on the brain that damages it, that people who have lived their whole life in that kind of negative religion where there's a God out to harm you, or where you're contrary to everyone around you, or where you're focused on your negativity, your lust, your shame, your traumas, that it creates brain damage that scans show can be equivalent for some people to the same kind of brain damage as doing a life of alcohol or drugs. So at the end of the day, we get to choose. We get to choose where we put our focus. We get to choose what we believe. And whether there is empirical proof, whether there is bad examples of people who took the positive thinking message and turned it into something toxic, and by that I mean they turned it in a way to re-victimize the victims, to say it was their fault because they weren't thinking positive, that's all true as well. And that can all be very damaging. But at the end of the day, where you put your mindset, where you put your focus, if you put it on gratitude, if you put it on positivity, if you put it on hope, both empirically and in the experience of thousands, if not millions of people around the world, you begin to transform who you are. And when you transform who you are on a more positive vibration, on a more positive focus, you're instantly, we know this scientifically, your immune system begins to operate better. There are people I know that I worked with who shifted their focus away from negativity to positivity, who forgave people that had hurt them, who resolved their traumas, who were able to heal physical ailments because the mind-body connection is so powerful. Look at the placebo effect. The placebo effect says if you believe you're going to get a positive outcome from receiving this administration of treatment, you're more likely to get the positive outcome. That's the placebo effect. Look it up, Google it. But most people don't know there's also a nocebo effect. A nocebo effect says if you believe this is going to affect you negatively, if you believe this is going to give you cancer, if you believe this is going to harm you in some way, and you really believe it, then it's going to manifest itself. Look up the nocebo effect. So which would you rather have? Would you rather have the positive benefits and outcomes of positive thinking? Or would you rather sit in your negativity hoping that somehow, some way through magical thinking, by sitting in your negativity while you're bringing down your immune system, while you're inhibiting the production of anti-aging chemicals in your body, while you're diminishing yourself and living in an internal hell? But somehow if I own this, if I just express this, it's going to magically fix. That's crazy. That's crazy. We even know as therapists, don't let somebody sit there in their negativity. If trauma-informed therapy, look it up. Trauma-informed therapy means that we don't want to re-traumatize you in the therapy room and just let you vent the anguish of your spirit, and somehow that's going to make you better. We want to help you face that in a way that you can integrate it and release it so that you can think more in a more healthy way, in a more positive way about yourself, and begin to create a more positive life. So don't let anybody tell you that positive thinking is toxic or scare you away from that. I'm here to tell you as a living example, as a living testimony, I'm testifying right now to you that positive thinking transformed my life in a positive way, and I believe that it's doing it now, and I believe it will do it in the future. So I hope this video has encouraged you. I want to tell you, no matter what you're facing, no matter what you're going through, all is not lost. There is hope for you, and there are things that you can do that can absolutely change the direction and the course of your life. So thank you for listening to this video. If you like it and I've earned your subscription, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, like and comment, and I'll be with you again for the next video. I'm Aaron Tomlinson. Thank you for being with me. I love you. I want to see the best for you. And I hope that things that I have said has added value to you and your life. I'll see you next time.